Today is the day we're going to try to smelt iron. So let's give a quick inventory. Got fuel. Got iron. Got my implements of destruction. I have my repair kit. I bought this so I can check to see the insulating value of clay. And then I've got my expendable freestanding big can. I have literally no expectation that this thing is going to survive. In fact, its destruction is actually sort of part of the thing in order to get the bloom out of it. I am somewhat concerned that we are building to a great and terrible outcome. I'm hoping that my great and terrible outcome will be great and terrible in the sense of Peter the Great and Ivan the Terrible. In other words, massive and awesome. Sadly, English is a rich language, and terrible has an alternate construction, which I hope I am not going to see, which is the utter and dramatic failure of 2 months' worth of preparation. But within the short span of the remainder of this video, you, my friends, will know whether the outcome was terrible or terrible. So, let's get her warmed up. The original fill on this is going to require just a tremendous quantity of charcoal, so I'll probably put most of a bag in. I want to bring it up close to the bottom of the chimney, and then I can slowly feed after that in order to maintain a really big ball of hopefully well aerated glowing charcoal down in the bosom of the smelter, if you will. I've decided on a couple of modifications of my original plan. The first thing I'm thinking is that I'm not sure how long this thing will survive the pretty intense heat I plan to generate. So I want to up my feed rate. Rather than 2 of these every 5 minutes, I'm going to throw in 3 of them every 5 minutes. The other thing I'm not sure of is I have this non-ball milled ore, and frankly I was just going to throw it away, but I think I'm going to go ahead and chuck it in because it's still got magnetic elements in it, and I might as well get as much iron in my smelter as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and keep filling that up. Let's get some baseline measurements with this thing. So right now, the interior of that chimney is at 124 degrees, 152. You can see it's going up, 164, 176. That's 40s or 50s. The outside of the thing is, oh, it's about 20, so it's cold out here. And we'll just watch this thing go up. I'm expecting to see at least 400 or 500 degrees inside the chimney when we're in full throat here. So either I've got steam or I've got escaping smoke. I guess it's a little bit of both. I'll probably be getting my my repair kit out here and trying to stop her up some of those what must be holes that have developed overnight. One of the pieces of advice that I read online was not to have your pieces of charcoal too large, because too much sort of grain in the charcoal pile will allow your ore to slip downward and not sort of accumulate in the way you want for developing a bloom. So they said break it up a bit, and that seems like sound advice. I suspect I'll spend a lot of time breaking charcoal into medium-sized lumps. So it's not hot. I can easily put my hand on it up till about there. A bit. Huh. Seem to have a little chugging going on. Not quite sure what the chugging is about. It's kind of interesting. I think I'll back up. Maybe incompletely combusted gases that are heating up when they go out the chimney. Let's check the exteriors again. So my interior temperature is 316, 322. The outside is 205. I'm up to 65 on the exterior of my chimney, and the body is at 35. So it has heated up. It was around 20 when I started, and it's at 35 now. Fascinating to see what happens as it goes up. And I actually can see hot spots as I work my way around. So those exteriorly smoking parts are actually hot spots. I am really, really, really pleased with the way this thing is heating now, but it does mean I can't put my hand over it to charge it. So I'm gonna have to use alternate methods. The interior of my chimney is at 380. The exterior of my chimney is at 267. As I work my way down, we're up to about 75 degrees at the base of the chimney, and the body is at 45 to 50 degrees. So I have really pretty good insulation. I don't think there's any doubt it's at least 1500 degrees inside that thing at this point. So I think I have to say that I've managed to achieve a pretty nice thermal shield. Really, I have to say, it's actually quite beautiful. I know it's a weird terminology, but it is kind of beautiful in sort of a primitive Middle East or Middle Ages sort of way. We're going to call this a 1-hour check-in. I've gone through a third of my ore. Things are getting really hot. The exterior of that chimney is at 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside, of course, it's unreadable because this thing lops off at 600 degrees. Actually, it's about the same on the inside and the outside at this point. As I work my way down the chimney, I'm about 200 in the middle of the body, and when I get to the base, I'm at 139. The outside of the body of my smelter is at 100 degrees. I think one of the things about the outside of the smelter is that it was probably partly cooled by the fact it was still outgassing steam, and it's getting pretty dehydrated now, so I suspect the temperature is going to start going up. That might not be a bad thing, because it would mean that I'm no longer expending energy to boil water. I'm just heating brick, and the temperature might actually go up inside. I don't actually know the answer to that. So this thing is about 2 feet 8 inches tall, and when it's really cooking, it's kind of beautiful. It's got about 2 feet of flame coming out the top. The actual level of the fire is kind of underneath my my suspension ring that I put in there in order to maintain structural stability. So really, it's kind of fun. I'm going to go ahead and just keep stoking for a while and give some of my recording equipment a break. So let's do an update here at the 1.5-hour mark. I'm about halfway through my supply of ore. I have actually been front loading the rock, figuring that it's taking longer to heat it up and melt it. So half of 14.5 pounds of powdered rock plus the bucket I put in there. There's probably over 10 pounds of iron ore in the smelter, and things are hot. So I think what we're seeing here is mostly steam, because it doesn't smell like smoke and it doesn't act like smoke. It's kind of dissipating rather quickly. What do we got for temperatures? I'm not sure I can actually measure temperatures without getting up closer, because things are so the temperature of the chimney is at 500 degrees. That seems to be fairly steady. As I work my way down, I'm at about 200 degrees in the mid stack, and I'm at 175 degrees at the bottom of the chimney. The other thing is that my plaster support ring has started to crack, and the outside body of my smelter is at 130 degrees. See if I can touch it. It's warm. It's touchable, but it's very warm. I'm getting some really significant cracking of the chimney. I'm a little concerned about that, but then again, it's probably rather highly vitrified, so I don't think it's likely to just spontaneously collapse. I'm just trying not to touch it when I load the thing. If I'm right, eventually I'm going to run out of moisture and this thing is going to stop steaming. Maybe. I guess we'll see. We'll watch what happens there. Let's do another update. We're going to call this our 2-hour update. I'm still steaming a good bit, although I think it's dropped back a little. How about some temperatures? So the temperature on the chimney is 520 to 540 degrees. It's pretty stable. It's over 600 degrees on the inside. The mid chimney is at 265 or so. The base of the chimney is at 228, 212, something like that. My ring is showing 300 degrees. You know, I was a little worried about that. It's a good place for heat leakage because it's got steel in it. The body is running somewhere between 150 and 200 degrees, depending on whether you pick a wet spot or a dry spot. So I'm having a little trouble feeding my smelter at the moment. Primarily because when I probe it a little bit, there's something in the way. Straight down from the chimney, there's something kind of hard, and it's keeping the charcoal from feeding the way I would wish that it would. I'm hoping that it's a bloom. I'm afraid it might just be a bunch of that rock I've been pouring in that's kind of agglomerated and stuck together and preventing stuff from moving, because if I can't get new charcoal down in there, I'm going to lose heat. So I've been trying to do a little pushing. I'm trying to be very careful not to touch the sides of the chimney because I'm afraid that they'll just fall to pieces, and that would really hurt my heat down low. It is interesting. There's definitely something hard right there. I'm not pushing on a mass of charcoal. I'm pushing on something else. I just don't know what it is. This poker that I'm using is made of copper, and clearly I'm hot down there because I'm bending it. I'm definitely above the softening point of copper, if not above the melting point of copper. This is my 2.5-hour update. I'm getting close to the end times here. Just really not feeding charcoal or nuggets very well anymore. And I've probed both of my air pipes, and there's definitely something solid in there. It's really starting to interfere with airflow. I know I've lost temperature. So right now my temperature is 460 at the chimney, 490 inside the chimney, 565, it's gone down. At my ring I'm at 420 degrees. That's impressive. My body is at 222 and mid chimney's at 307. So clearly I've cooked this stuff pretty well. My problem is there's something big and hard in there that's obstructing both airflow and ore feed. So what happens is that you get something in there, it starts obstructing airflow, your temperature goes down, and then you can't melt it, and I think that's where I am. I am going to keep on trying to get the rest of this stuff in there, and then I'll just stoke it up and let it cook for an hour or so. But my guess is that anything that's going to happen that's of any value has already happened, and the rest of this is probably just futile. But I'm going to put it in there anyway. I don't know if you saw that, but when I poked that, I had charcoal dust coming out all over. I can actually see fire through a couple of these deep cracks, so clearly I'm really losing vessel integrity here. I'm just going to have to live with that because really there's nothing I can do about it at this point except hope that I've got enough integrity to finish my smelt with some kind of actual output. I've decided to suspend feeding for a little bit and see if this thing can recover. I just stepped on 3 or 4 of my nuggets anyway. I'm almost done here because I think this thing's I think it's tapped out. But we'll let it go for 15 minutes and see if that clears up at all. Maybe it will. Maybe it's just choked with too much charcoal. So we'll let it go for a minute. I started this evolution about 3 hours and 15 minutes ago. I'm at 425 there at the top of the chimney and 450 on the inside of the chimney. Chimney's got a big hole in it. Mid chimney I'm at about 385, 400 degrees. My ring's coming in at 370 and the body is at... So this is a lot like a relationship. It starts off slowly with a couple of puffs of smoke. Then after a while the fire is lit. Air rushes in. It becomes hot and bright and exciting. And you get giant towers of flame that rise up from the relationship. But then after a while, it slowly becomes overburdened with slag and choked with the fuel of bad feelings, and then what you're left with is embers. So I think what I'm going to do is essentially let this thing run for 20-minute intervals, come out here and see if I can fit more of this stuff in it, and eventually I'll get to the point where it simply won't take any more or it'll burn out, and then we'll wait for it to cool off and see what we have. So I'm going to close up this particular chapter for the moment. See you shortly. It's 2 hours after the last video I shot, and over the course of time I gradually got the rest of my iron ore into this thing. I put it in at about 20 to 40 minute intervals, and I did manage to get it all in. So let's look at some temps. Inside the chimney I'm at 575. Outside the chimney I'm at 348. Mid chimney I'm at 425. My ring's coming in at 368 degrees, and I'm at 279 degrees, 280 degrees down on the belly. So clearly it's hot. So I'm going to go ahead and do one last charge here of charcoal, and then I'm just going to let it go until it's completely gone, which I'm thinking is going to take hours, literally hours. I do have some thoughts while I'm doing this. Back on the question of relationships, if your relationship is over the fires of the initial period and you think that the ore of your ardor has cooled and formed the slag of the final smelt, I think what this smelter has told us is you should back off, give yourself some time, give yourself some space. Don't worry so much about trying to fill your life with the constant hubbub of additional fuel and activity, and just let it go for a bit. That's all I have. I can't see that there's any way that this thing's going to burn itself out in less than 2 to 3 hours, and I just don't see that I'm going to be able to open it until tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on it and see. For now, see you later. It's late at night, the night after the big smelt. I worked late. I just got home and I was planning on taking this thing apart today, but obviously I didn't get a chance to do that. In fact, I'm not really sure when I'm going to get a chance to do that, but I think let's try grabbing something and taking it inside and having a look. My goodness, it's very hard inside. So I pulled this out of the top, which means this is sort of to the end of my final melt. It's really light. I think it's probably slag because it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of iron in it. It's not dense enough. It's kind of interesting the way it melted and flowed. It is magnetic. It's also easy to break. So I guess what I've probably got is a combination of iron and slag. I think it's also important to remember that since I pulled this out at the top, this is toward the end of my smelt when the thing was really kind of underperforming. So it's hard to say what I'm going to see when I get deeper inside. You know, honestly, I'm just going to call this one an episode because the deconstruction of that thing is obviously going to be pretty complicated. So anyway, let's call that an evening, and please feel free to like and subscribe if you want. Obviously, you don't have to if you don't want to. Happy to have you tell your friends if you want. Again, don't have to. Next episode, we will delve into the interstices of the carcass of the Bloomery furnace. Thanks very much, and have a nice day.